I'm very privileged to have Professor Jorij Abraham, all the way from Netherlands, right, to share with us some highlights on mobile security and scams. So thank you so much, Professor, for your time today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very happy.
Yeah, right. For some of our audience who are not too familiar with the Global Anti-Scam Alliance, of which you are the managing director, if I understand, could you sort of give a brief introduction about the organization?
So the Global Anti-Scam Alliance is a non-profit organization, and we bring together governments, law enforcement, consumer protection organizations, banks, telecom operators, and social media to share intelligence on scams, but also really define better solutions to protect consumers worldwide from scams.
Right, to bring together some intelligence from the private sector as well as the public sectors.
Both ways.
Right.
And really, it can be very operational, like what are the latest trends in scams, what are the latest modus operandi, but also which policies are working to protect consumers better from scams, and which ones are maybe not working as well.
Earlier, the panel touched on some of the reports that your organization published in terms of the global scam threat landscape. So I believe that's 1 billion that was theoretically scammed or lost to scams over the last 1 year across the world.
Correct, $1 trillion.
Oh, 1 trillion.
Yeah, who's counting?
Right.
So $1 trillion was lost in scams. And that can be investment scams, but also $50 in an online shopping scam where the product is never delivered. So it can be any kind of scam.
And you also publish reports focusing on, I believe, Malaysia, Thailand, Korea, Japan, a lot of different countries. Do we have any sort of demographic breakdowns in terms of who the victims are, whether they are younger generation, older generation, from developed countries, developing countries?
We see a few interesting demographics. It used to be indeed that mainly elderly people lost a lot of money in investment scams. That changed in the last 2-3 years. We see now that young people are getting scammed just as much as elderly people. We see that people with high education are getting scammed just as much as people with less education. The only real difference we see is that people in developing nations are scammed way more than people in richer countries. Because due to Corona, there was a sharp rise in the adoption of internet, and the people in developing countries are less familiar with the internet. They're using it, but they have less experience, and they fall for the easy scams. So we see developing nations are actually being hurt a lot more than the richer countries.
Is it a safe assumption to assume that the scammers are from more developed countries or developing countries?
Interestingly enough, we see a lot of professionalization in the scam industry. So, there has been a lot of talk about the scam compounds in Southeast Asia, but we know in Africa there are a few villages which specialize in specific kinds of scams. But also my own country, I'm from the Netherlands. We have a very bad reputation for supporting bulletproof hosting, meaning a scam site can stay very long online if they're hosting in the Netherlands due to our legislation. So we see every country has its own own criminals who specialize in one kind of scam and are getting better and better and better at it.
Right, and as a way of empowering the cyber criminals and the scammers, I think technology plays a very important role, doesn't it?
Yes, and it's nowadays very easy. For 70 euros or dollars, you can set up a very professional-looking banking website or a forex trading site. It looks just like the real thing, and it costs you $70 to set it up. Mm-hmm. So online crime has a very low threshold to get into.
Right, the barriers of entry for the cyber criminals and the scammers are getting lower and lower.
Very low, very low.
And I'm presuming that the criminal sort of ecosystem is getting more and more competitive with technology becoming more and more accessible to everyone, including themselves.
Yeah, now we see it with AI. They're using it, and they're because it's also very cheap. It's very you don't need to be a trained developer. it's very easy to just tell ChatGPT to set up, create a phishing email for me towards an elderly lady, asking them to make an investment in a Nasdaq exchange-listed company.
Yeah, and now with deepfakes and voice cloning, the scammers are also able to target their scams towards specific individuals and also, I guess, profiles.
Yep, correct. I had my own deepfake scam experience a few months ago.
All right, okay.
And that also shows you how specialized they are. I was approached via LinkedIn. We are always looking for more developers. So I was approached by a person via LinkedIn. And he said, hey, I saw your vacancy. I would like to apply. I'm a developer. This is my GitHub account, developer. And I said, okay, great. Let's have a video interview. And we planned the interview, and he wasn't showing his face. So I asked, hey, could you turn on your video? And he said, give me a few minutes, and then I had to change computers, and then I can do a video interview. And I spoke to the person, and somewhere it felt a little bit awkward because his face was European, but his voice was more Asian. And at one time, I just said, hey, can you take off your glasses? And the connection broke, and he never came back. And 3 weeks later, I got the same message via LinkedIn from a different account with the same GitHub account. It's just mass production and trying to convince people to pay for getting a person hired. He wanted $1,000 to start working for my company.
Oh, right, upfront payment before he even...
Upfront payment.
All
and
right.
I know it works because in Europe, we developers are very scarce, and his GitHub account looked very good. So I have no doubt that many companies just paying $1,000 to start working.
Right, so the individual's GitHub account is authentic, as in...
It's authentic, it's just not his.
Oh, right, so he's spoofing someone else's
He's spoofing, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. And I guess when we get some of these messages on LinkedIn, one of the first things I do is to see, how many posts they've made in the past, whether we have mutual connections and stuff like that. But those can also, I suppose, be, built over time as well, or taken over.
That's a good example where people are being lured to give their LinkedIn password, or it's simply hacked because the password was too simple, and they're then being misused by scammers. But you can also buy LinkedIn accounts. They're being sold. Same with Facebook. All the account. If you want an account to any social media, you can buy it.
With this kind of cybercrime is cross-border, so there's a lot of, jurisdictional sort of friction, right, when it comes to sharing information. So can you talk a little bit about some of these challenges when it comes to sharing information across, borders?
Maybe give you a good example of how much we still need to work and get done. Last year, a scammer was arrested in Germany. And he had scammed 2 people from Germany. But it was known that he had scammed more than 30 people in Austria, which is next to Germany. He was prosecuted for the 2 scams in Germany. But the German prosecutor could not prosecute him for the crimes done in another country, which on the one hand is logical, but as a result, we see many scammers, they scam across the world, and they actually make sure that they don't scam too much in one country to remain not visible to law enforcement, and to know that if they ever get caught, they're being punished for relatively small crime instead of the total crime they're committing. So there we need to do a lot of changes in legislation to allow global prosecution of scams.
I think for one sort of rule that I applied to myself is, if an offer sounds too good to be true, whether it's a job offer, whether it's a lottery, winning a lottery, or whether, it's, it's normally too good to be true.
And that's typical a rule where it used to work.
Ah, right.
And it's working less and less.
Oh, is it?
Because scammers know that if it's too easy or too good to be true, then you start having doubts. So in online shopping scams, it used to be 50% cheaper. Now people say, nah, that cannot be true. But if it's 2% cheaper, then you will believe it. So we see scammers learning that it doesn't have to be too good to be true, it just has to be good. Same with employment scams. they are, I mean, because they specialize so much, they learn a lot and they're continuously improving. And often when a scam compound is rolled up, they see huge scripts on what they have to say, what to have to do, how to convince people. So I always say scammers are the best marketeers and the best psychiatrists. I would really recommend use antivirus tools, but we see a lot of companies now developing anti-scam solutions. So we have as members Bitdefender, Trend Micro, Scam Advisor, GoGoLook. They all develop tools to better recognize phone scams or scam sites or fake phishing emails. I think as a consumer, we have a responsibility to use what is available to better protect ourselves.
So those are available for consumers?
There's over.
Awesome.
Compared to last year, the market of consumer offerings protecting consumers better from the different types of scams has exploded. And we really see a lot of good tools already in the market.
That's something that we need to spread awareness about, right?
Yep, definitely.
On top of manually spotting the red flags, also relying on these tools to automatically do a first defense against this.
Yes, because I really think that scams are becoming too good, not only because of AI, but also because the scammer is a professional. We should not think of it as it is a criminal, but it's also a professional. They're very good. So it's impossible for consumers to recognize every type of scam, and you need tools to do this automated.
Yes, yeah. I think there's a lot of talk about, how we are in this, not just the digital era, but also the AI era, and scammers and criminals are using AI. So we have to use AI as well, because it's machine versus machines now, isn't it?
Yes, and I recently spoke to the chief of engineer of GoGoLook, and he created a vision that he believes that in 1 or 2 years, we will no longer answer our own calls. We will no longer read our own emails. It will first be scanned the phone will be picked up by an AI, the emails will be read by an AI, before it can reach us. And I fear that we need that kind of protection in the future.
All right, okay, I can't wait for, next time when we have a chat, perhaps you will talk to an AI first before, you get to reach me on a podcast.
You will always have direct access to me.
All right, thank you so much for your time today, George.
Thank you very much. Thank you.